Hey, I try to keep my intro short, so like the video if you could, sub if you're a returning viewer. Over 50% of you guys are not subscribed, so that'd be pretty cool. And check out the Twitch if you're into that kind of thing. Let's get started. So I'm actually really excited for this video because I hate feeling like I'm overly critical, but sometimes on a commentary channel, it comes off that way because I shed light on things that need light shed on them. But this time we're going to take a more positive route and shed light on the most underrated survivor perks in Dead by Daylight. And if this video gets 200 likes, I'll do a killer version. I hate setting goals like that, it's so corny, but you know, anything for the channel. So I could be cheap and talk about inner healing, fixated, stuff like that. Stuff we already know is good and isn't really considered meta, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to talk about perks that have less than a 1% pick rate. My only goal is to talk about perks that you never see, and the only people that know about these perks are people that know all the perks by heart, such as myself. So let's get started. We're going to start really simple, and that's going to be Dance With Me. This perk is not crazy underrated, which is why I wanted to start with it, but it is such a good perk that I see so many people not use in builds they should use it on. Again, we're starting simple. I know that a lot of people know about this perk, but there's so many people that don't. It's as simple as this. When performing a rush vault action or when rushing out of a locker, you don't leave any scratch marks for the next 3 seconds. Obviously, you run it with life. You could also stack it with Lucky Break and Quick and Quiet if you want to do a full build revolving around it, but it's such a good perk. But like I said, a lot of people know about it, so we're going to scoop right past it. Next perk, a Jeff perk, Aftercare. The reason I put this one on the list, even though I don't use it too much, is because there's so many people that love running support builds, you know, the Will Make It gamers of the world, that don't know about Aftercare. It's also insanely helpful if you're in a duo and you might not know the maps by heart yet. A very easy to understand perk. You see the auras of the last 3 survivors that you've rescued from a hook, have rescued you from a hook, you've healed, or have healed you. Not only do you see their aura, but they also see yours. It's reset once you're hooked by the killer. This next perk is probably my favorite underrated perk, and I think it's probably the most underrated when comparing its pick rate to its usefulness. It's also insane in both teams and solo queues. There is a downside to it, and we'll talk about that. It's really simple. Once you're unhooked, you already have half your health progress back. It's amazing in solo queue when survivors who otherwise wouldn't heal you look at your progress bar and go, oh, they're already half healed, let me just finish this off. If you're stacked with someone that's running Will Make It, your heal is done in like a second and a half. But there obviously is a glaring downside, and that being Sloppy Butcher is a very meta perk, especially on M1 killers. And if they're running Sloppy Butcher, unfortunately, you do lose Resurgence the second you're unhooked. It'll start regressing back to 0. Again, it's still a phenomenal perk, it just has, unfortunately, a meta counter. The reason I say meta counter is because it's just a much higher chance that you're going to get countered when running this perk. However, I run this perk all the fucking time. Speaking of healing, since we're kind of on that trend right now, reactive healing. I never see this perk, but every time I run it, I get value out of it. Maybe I'm just lucky, maybe I'm in the right place at the right time, but I swear I always get value out of this perk. When another survivor within 32 meters of you loses a health state, you gain 50% of healing progress. And something a lot of people missed about this perk is they actually added a quality of life thing where you round up to 100 if you're really close. It doesn't seem like much, but you actually get an extra 4% heal because of that. Again, it doesn't sound like much, but this perk is so good. Especially if you're an adrenaline enjoyer and you like passively gaining a health state, it's amazing. Again, it is countered by Sloppy Butcher, which is frustrating, but if you're already healing and you gain the progress, you're golden. Also, I'd like to point out that as time goes on, I'm seeing less and less Sloppy Butcher on M1 killers and more 4-gen kicks. We're going right back to the old meta, baby. Next up, probably the most underrated perk in this entire game. I don't see anyone running it. Made for this. That was a joke, by the way. You know what perk is really underrated and actually came out this year? Background Player. It's an exhaustion perk that sends you into a sprint burst, essentially, when the killer picks up a survivor. This perk is really nice if you're learning flashlight timings or if you're a flashbang player. If you're running Background Player and a flashbang, you have a significantly higher chance to get the save in time. If you're someone like me who is always like a quarter second late to their flashbang saves and you want to get better at them, Background Player is the way to do it. It'll let you get comfortable with the timing with a little bit of a cushion, and then once you're comfortable with it, you can take the perk off. I view it kind of like windows of opportunity in the way that it lets you train to get better at something, and then once you get better, you can take the perk off. And it's also like Windows in the sense that you might know everything by heart already, like you might know vault spawns, pallet spawns, but it still helps you. And background player, you might know your timing, you might know your positioning, but it still helps you, you know? In situations where the killer whips a 180 last second, you background player there, and you're still good. When this perk first came out, I thought it was going to be a gimmick like Blood Rush that nobody actually used, but background player is actually a really strong perk. We are speedrunning this list, but next up, I've actually been laughed at for running this perk, and then the people that laughed at me now also run the perk. And that would be the one and only Alert. Some people would argue that Fogwise is better, but this is my list, bitch, and I prefer Alert 10 times over. If you stack Alert with Wiretap, you're pretty much given infinite intel the whole game, and if you don't believe me, go run the two perks together, because they're insane. Alert is a very accessible perk, as Fang is an OG character. Well, depending on what system you play on, but regardless. She's one of the most played characters in the entire game, she has one of the highest pick rates, but so many people ignore this perk. I'm yapping about it and I haven't even said what the perk is, I'm so sorry. Anytime the killer does any breaking action, the aura is revealed for 5 seconds. It is phenomenal passive intel, and I know a lot of people prefer Fogwise over this perk, but I don't like that Fogwise you have to go do something to activate the perk. Alert just activates on its own. Alright, this one I feel like some people are going to disagree with me, but I love this perk, Self-Preservation. For people that don't know, Yunjin's entire character design and perk design revolves around playing selfish. All three of her perks are purposefully meant to be selfish perks, and I think that's quite interesting, and it's an overlooked fact. Self-Preservation is an amazing perk. Other perks in this game, you only hide scratch marks, or maybe you only hide grunts of pain, or you only hide pools of blood, but with Self-Preservation, anytime a survivor within 16 meters of you gets hit in any way, all your scratch mark, grunts of pain, and pools of blood are suppressed for 10 seconds. It might not seem strong in theory because it's activated by someone else, but if you're playing for a beam save, this perk is phenomenal. If you're like me and you love hovering for beam saves because you're sick of doing 3 gens alone, this perk is for you. Especially in higher MMR lobbies where killers fake pick every single survivor they down like 4 times, this perk is perfect because they won't hear you making a whimper audio in the corner. Stack it with background player and you never have to be hesitant on a beam save ever again. You can be as late as you want. I want to speed run some honorary mentions as well, such as Inner Healing, Parental Guidance, Overzealous, Hyper Focus makes gens more fun. Deja Vu is probably one of the best common perks in this game, as 3 gens are a bigger problem than they've ever been. But that would be my list. If you guys have any other perks that you think are underrated, please comment them below. There's a great chance I missed quite a few bangers. And again, get this video to 200 likes. Don't be shy. We'll make a killer video. I actually kind of miss making killer videos, so I would love to do that regardless. But I hope that you slip one of these into your build and realize how fucking scuffed these perks are. And I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Don't forget, I post every single Friday. Adios.